Hey. Good morning.
I will. And tell Ann to call me if she needs something. When's your last day?
I'm glad everybody made it out this morning. I hope you're planning to come back tomorrow for anyone who hasn't been here before on Mother's Day. We actually opened our doors on Mother's Day. Tomorrow will make 28 years. And we tend to like to celebrate. We think that's a cause for celebration. As we like to say, after 28 years, we're an overnight success. But we already have the freezer full of Bluebell ice cream. We've never run out of ice cream. We all make our favorite homemade cookie recipes. I made about 30 dozen on my last day off. And George Gaitan, the guitarist, will be here from 11 till 3 tomorrow. So if you're out and about tomorrow, please come back over and enjoy some good music, some good things to eat and drink at the same time. This morning's topic is tropicals. I think that, well, fortunately, it's not quite as hot this morning. These past few days, this certainly would have been good tropical weather. 103, I think, is what my thermometer said on the way home yesterday. But cooling off a little bit. But the nice thing is we have a bunch of plants that don't mind those kinds of temperatures, and with our climate seeming like we just haven't had a cold winter in a long time, I'm more and more convinced we ought to be planting these things in the ground, giving them just a minimum amount of protection, and just enjoying the flowers practically year-round. The thing that's happened with our super mild winters is things have hardly frozen back at all, so we'll probably have to spend a little more time talking about pruning tropical plants than we normally do. But the most important things about growing tropicals are give them plenty of sun, keep them, except for the hibiscus, keep them on the dry side slightly, seems to make them bloom better. Feed very regularly, and other than that, they are among the most trouble-free plants you will ever find. Very few insect problems with tropicals. Like I say, for the most part, they love the hot sun. They don't mind the heat. So for South Texas, they're one of our best plants that we can grow, just as really maintenance-free, colorful plants that bloom an awful lot of the year. One difference that we have started recommending in the way we grow these things is in the fertilizing. We used to say just, you know, feed with your Rose Glow or your Color Essentials, that it really works to put the flowers on. We're finding that if you alternate a bit, if you use something like the Medina fertilizer one time and then use the Color Essentials twice, then use the Medina one time, then use the Color Essentials twice, it really seems to promote both growth and flowering at the same time. And that Medina product has so much of the micronized green sand, so much of the iron in it, that it really does help to keep things greened up as well as blooming well. But you know, tropicals to me are just, we live in South Texas, and I don't know why we don't build our landscapes more around these things. And it's always odd to me, you go down to Brownsville or Harlingen or places like that where it would seem like a real natural, and the plants are ugly. Here in San Antonio, I mean, driving around, has anybody not noticed the bougainvilleas in people's yards this year? They've been absolutely spectacular. And this morning I want to show you a few plants that you may not be as aware of, but other things that just will bloom practically all year round. Now, like I say, the most important things in growing the tropicals, of course, are giving them plenty of sun. As we talk about them individually, there are a couple of them that will grow in somewhat less than full sun, but pretty much all the tropicals like good sun, and they like soil that drains well. This is one place that I think it's important, especially important when you plant, when you dig the hole, fill it with water, and be sure that all that water drains out within an hour or two. If the water's not draining out that fast, then you either need to create a raised bed, or one thing that I've seen some people do that works real well is to put them in a big pot, but then bury the pot about a third of the way down in the ground and let them grow roots down through the holes in the bottom of the pot. And that ensures you get good drainage, but you don't have to go to all the trouble of building a huge raised bed. But in general, they're among the easiest of all plants, and I guess what I really want to do, because there are some big differences in them, is just kind of take them one by one and tell you a few of the secrets that we found about growing these things and keeping them in bloom. Now, I think has everybody that wants one gotten a copy of one of these handouts? I'm not necessarily going to go in order of what's on there, but there's just a list and a little bit of information about the different ones. Anybody else?
I have a question, Bob.
Okay.
When you said alternate between the Rose Glow and the Medina,
Right.
what are, I guess, how often and how much?
With all flowering plants, we like to feed them every 3 or 4 weeks. And it depends on the size of the plant. With the Medina granular, average size plant, I'm going to use 1 or 2 cups of fertilizer around it. And what we actually do is usually use the Medina once and then use the Color Essentials twice, then the Medina once, then the Color Essentials twice. And in both cases, 1 to 2 cups per plant. Of course, the organic products don't burn, so there's no rush to water them in, but they won't really go to work until you water them in. So we like to put it out, water it. And if you find, as some people do, that on the Color Essentials, and of course, as I've told you before, all this is Rose Glow with some other things added to it to make it even better. The one disadvantage to this fertilizer is it's full of alfalfa, it has some corn, has some other things in it. And if you read a good dog food bag, it'll have a lot of alfalfa and a lot of corn. And some puppy dogs can't seem to tell the difference. They think this stuff is pretty tasty. Get a bottle of cayenne pepper and just mix some cayenne with it, and that greatly discourages the eating of the fertilizer. Lets it get to the plants where it was intended, and doesn't really bother the dogs, but they will tend to leave it alone after they've gotten a mouthful or 2 of hot pepper, and it's a necessary thing. Okay, probably the most popular of all tropical plants, especially this year, has to be the bougainvillea. Bougainvilleas there come in a lot of different varieties. They all will trail to some extent, can be grown in hanging baskets, but given time as they mature, they're going to want to grow upright. So their basic growth habit is as a big shrub. If you grow them in the ground, again, keeping them somewhat dry will help them bloom. And we always find that when they're root bound, they really seem to bloom best. So one thing I encourage people to do, if you're not looking for just a huge plant on the bougainvillea, when you dig the hole, leave it in the pot. Sink the pot down in the ground. It will grow its roots out through the holes in the bottom of the pot, but at the same time it tends to kind of keep that root base constricted right at the base of the plant, and that really seems to make them bloom even more. If you don't let them get moderately dry between waterings, all they want to do is grow. I mean, flowering is the plant's effort to make seed, to reproduce itself. Bougainvilleas are one plant that always seems to bloom best if they are somewhat stressed. So let them get dry, especially in the ground. Let them get dry almost to the point of wilting. Once they're established, you probably need to water your bougainvilleas every 4 to 6 weeks. And if you keep them on the dry side, they'll do just fine. If you water them frequently, you'll have lots more foliage and lots fewer flowers. So a bit on the dry side. Now, probably the most important thing you do in choosing bougainvilleas is to get the better, newer varieties of bougainvillea. And the reason for that is that most of the old ones, names like Barbara Karst, like Convent, these are varieties that have been around a long time, but they're what we call short day bloomers. Most of the old-fashioned bougainvilleas bloom when the days are short and the nights are long, which means that you get wonderful flowers in the spring, you get wonderful flowers in the fall. But in the middle of the summer, when the days are long, you don't get much in the way of blooms. The newer varieties, the Juanita Hattons, the Vera Purples, the Surprise, the Vickies, these are all what we call day-neutral bougainvilleas, which means